Hey guys, in this video I have the Jumper T8SG Plus sent to me for review. It's a follow-up to the Jumper T8SG I reviewed before. This new model has a lot of improvements over the previous version. It still runs DeviationTX and has multi-protocol capabilities to communicate with many models. If you're looking for the next step up from the stock toy radio that comes with your RC model, this is a good option. It has the 4 standard RF chips, the CC2500, CYRF6936, NRF24, and A7105 that allow it to speak most of the popular protocols available on the market. This includes a DSM, Flysky, Syma, with more protocols added once they are decoded. For those who want to move away from, say, the stock toy radios that come with their models, this is a step up and it's still a very capable radio. DeviationTX is loaded on it and it's really good, but for those who are used to, say, OpenTX, it may be a bit foreign. One of my first radios was a Spectrum DX6i, and I find DeviationTX to be similar to that, but as I progressed over the years, I started using OpenTX and prefer that. But DeviationTX is still good. I wouldn't say that it's not as good as OpenTX, it's just different. It's like comparing Android to iOS. With that said, you can do a lot of things with DeviationTX, and at the end of the day, it just needs to be able to control your RC models better than those crappy stock radios. So there's actually 2 versions of the T8SG V2. There's a Plus model and a non-Plus model, and the difference really is the OLED screen and the Hall sensor gimbals on the Plus model, but everything else is the same. So here I have the Plus model, which has the OLED screen. So it's slightly bigger at 2.4 inches versus the older model at 1.7, I believe. Compared to the previous LCD screen, it has much better contrast, and it doesn't show up really well on my camera because it's like flickering, but when you're looking at it in person, it doesn't do that. Another improvement over the previous model are the sticks. They're using Hall sensor gimbals now. Even though I didn't have an issue with the sticks on the previous model, it's nice that they improved it. Now the V2 model does not have the Hall sensor gimbals, it's only the Plus model. So I'm gonna bring out the T8SG just to do a side-by-side comparison now. So like I said, they upgraded the sticks on the previous model. They now have Hall sensor gimbals on the Plus model. Another minor change they did was the power button. On the original, it was a sliding button. But now it's actually just a push button. You push it and then it turns on, and you hold it down for like 2 seconds and it turns off. And the switches have been upgraded, I think, because the original switches, they were kind of sticky. Sometimes when you flick it down, it didn't register anything. But they've also included 3 of them per side as opposed to 2. So the extra switches do help. Another thing is the auxiliary dials. They were on the front. Now they've moved it to the sides, which actually makes them a lot more convenient to use. One major change that they did implement was the location of the USB port. So it's up here now on the top right hand side of the Plus version, and the original one didn't have an accessible USB port. It was actually inside the battery compartment, and it was really hard to get to. You need to use some extension cables to get at it. So it's nice that they made it more accessible for upgrades and loading of models. Another change they did was the battery. The original actually didn't have a battery included or a battery tray, so you had to find one yourself. And in this model, you can see that there's actually a battery tray that you can plug in. So the battery tray is included now if you want to use AA batteries. You can also remove the battery tray and plug in your own 2S LiPo battery. Another interesting feature that you'll find on the Plus model is that there is a compartment for a JR module so that you can add external modules like the iRange X. Not that you would, because they have the same chips, but maybe in the future they may have a new chip that would be able to speak a certain frequency and you'll be able to plug that in. Or maybe if you want to plug in an FrSky module to give you that extra range, because the dedicated modules will give you much better range than the built-in modules. And they plug in just like normal. They have basically your standard 4 pins that you would make sure you line up and just push in, and they fit this iRange X module just fine. And I can't see why you can't plug in like a DSM2, a DSMX, or a FrSky module. So that's very, very nice that they included this. It makes this transmitter a lot more future-proof, I think, and that that is a major selling point that I think with the T8SG Plus version. So let's see what version of Deviation that it's running. So if you go to the About section on the fourth option, hit enter, and that is the version T8SG version 5, and those are the build numbers at the very end. So if you're going to run this off of AA batteries, make sure that you go change your low voltage alarm, or else it'll keep on beeping every time. So go to transmitter menu, and if you go to transmitter configuration, go to the bottom there where it says battery alarm, set that to about, I'd say 4 volts if you're using nickel metal hydrate, and 5 volts if you're using alkaline, and this will prevent it from beeping all the time. And if you're running a LiPo battery, a 2S LiPo, the default of 7.4 volts should be fine. Now in terms of setup, I'll go over a quick 5-channel configuration with the Jumper X68T quadcopter and the binding process. I have a ton of videos on setups and flashing the firmware for the original T8SG, and the process is pretty much the same, so check out the links to those videos in the description. Now I'll quickly run through the process of setting up the radio with the X68T. First thing you want to do is go to the model setup screen, hit load, and select an empty slot. Next thing to do is give your model a name. Try to give it a more descriptive name here, so I'm going to name this X68T. You can select a custom icon to represent your model if you want. Select multi-rotor as your model type, and the transmitting power can be 30 milliwatts. For the protocol, make sure you select the right one. In this case, it is the Beiyang protocol. And after that, you want to exit out of the model setup and go to the mixer, where we're going to add another channel for the flight mode. So go down to mixer and scroll all the way down to channel 5 for the X68T. This channel is used to select the flight mode, whether it's in acro or self-leveling. So what you want to do is select simple, and then go down to the source, and then select the switch that will be activating the flight mode. You can either flick the switch or scroll through them and select the right one. If your aircraft has other channels like camera or flip, the mixer is where you can configure them to a switch. Make sure you save the mix, and that should be it in terms of setting up a simple quadcopter. So to bind this to the Jumper X68T, what you want to do is plug up the battery, and the lights on the quadcopter should be glowing. And what you want to do is hit reinit, and that would start the binding process. And after it binds, the lights should turn off, I believe. And then when you flick the switch on channel 5, which we set previously, it should turn the light on. So that changes the flight mode. And if you use the throttle now, you'll notice that it will work as well. So that's basically how you bind it. The new version of the T8SG definitely deserves its Plus designation. It adds a lot of improvements over the previous model. It's the ideal transmitter for people who are looking for something better than their stock radios and who only want to use just one transmitter to control everything. Will this replace a Taranis QX7 or a 9XD with a 4-in-1 module? It's really close, I'd say. Jumper really stepped up their game with this model, and with the JR module bay, it's expandable, it's upgradable, and the built-in 4-in-1 module supports the FrSky protocol, but you can also add a dedicated FrSky module in the compartment for longer range uses. Also, if there are new protocols that use a different RF chip in the future that isn't part of the 4-in-1 module, it can be added via an external module. Now, in newer versions of this transmitter, I hope they can put in a bigger screen and give an option for colors and maybe even customizable faceplates. Anyways, that's it for this review. I'll have links to everything I mentioned in the description if you're interested in picking one up. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.